There comes a moment in awakening that slips in like a breath you didn't know you were holding, when the one who looks out through your eyes and the field moving around you dissolve into the same pulse. If this reached you, it's because you're close to that threshold, where reality stops being something you watch and begins to answer your very noticing. Stay here. Once you feel this union, you won't just see the world. You'll sense it seeing you back. The observer is the quiet awareness behind your eyes. The field is the living web of information, holding everything you touch, think, and feel. Awakening deepens when you realize they are not two forces facing each other, but one movement seen from different angles. Your inner state shapes the field, and the field mirrors you with exact precision. The moment you sense this continuity, the boundary between in here and out there begins to fade. Modern physics spent decades trying to understand why particles change their behavior the moment someone looked at them. Mystics had already given the answer centuries earlier. Observation is not passive. It is an active participant in how reality organizes itself. When you look at anything, an event, a memory, a possibility, your nervous system, electromagnetic field, and subtle patterns of attention begin shaping what that something can become. You're not simply watching, you're influencing. This isn't magic, it's coherence. Your internal state carries a measurable signature, electrical rhythms in the brain, magnetic pulses around the heart, micro patterns in breath and muscle tone. When these patterns shift, the space around you shifts with them. Whether you call it the quantum field, the informational field, or simply the atmosphere of your life, it is constantly reorganizing itself in response to what you hold inside. Think of a day when you woke up tense. The world felt narrow. People seemed rushed. Small inconveniences multiplied. Nothing out there caused the tension. The tension set the field, and the field echoed it back. Then recall a day when you felt unusually clear. Suddenly conversations flowed, timing aligned, and the world seemed to open its doors before you knocked. The external world didn't magically decide to become kinder. The field took its cue from the observer. Union begins the moment you truly see this. Your observation is not a lens, it is a force. When you shift the quality of your attention, the field adjusts its structure to match it. This is why intuition becomes sharper when you're calm, why synchronicities spike when you're aligned, why opportunities appear when you stop grasping and start noticing. You're not bending reality to your will. You are dissolving the separation that made it feel distant in the first place. The scientific angle is simple. Coherence invites coherence. A stable internal signal creates a stable external pattern. But the lived experience is deeper. When you observe with presence instead of fear, the field no longer behaves like something outside you. It acts as if it knows you. It moves with you. It mirrors you with an almost eerie precision because the boundary between observer and field has thinned. Many people mistake this for luck, divine intervention, or rare spiritual moments. But the truth is quieter. The field is always responsive. You're only beginning to notice how often it answers your state before it answers your actions. What changes is not the world, it's your position within it. You stop standing at the edge of reality looking in, and instead feel yourself as a point of influence, embedded in the fabric of everything. This is the first doorway to union. Not believing that your observation shapes the field, but seeing it happen in real time, feeling the world adjust its rhythm as your inner rhythm shifts. The more you recognize this interaction, the less separate you feel. And once that separation dissolves, awakening stops being an idea and becomes an atmosphere you move inside consciously. There is a moment in the path toward union when the field stops whispering and begins pressing against you with an intensity that feels almost overwhelming. Many people misinterpret this pressure as a sign that something is wrong, when in truth, it is the field tightening its communication, trying to pull the observer back into alignment. The signal arrives not as peace, but as discomfort, sharp, emotional, sometimes physical, because discomfort is the one frequency you cannot ignore. The body becomes the first messenger. A heaviness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, a sudden restlessness that makes no logical sense. These sensations are not punishments or defects. They are the field amplifying what your awareness has been avoiding. When the observer disconnects from the field sends noise. When the observer begins to return, that noise peaks, because the distance between the two is collapsing. This is why spiritual growth often begins with irritation, confusion, or internal friction. The mind wants clarity, but the field speaks through pressure long before it speaks through understanding. You feel pushed, cornered, challenged. Old patterns surface with unusual strength. Situations that once felt tolerable now feel impossible. The discomfort intensifies, not because you are failing, but because the gap between your inner truth and your current posture has become too small to ignore. Imagine a compass trying to realign with magnetic north. When it is far away, the needle moves slowly. When it gets close, the pull becomes abrupt and undeniable. The same happens with consciousness. As the observer approaches union, every misalignment becomes louder. The tension is not a warning of danger, it is a sign of proximity. You are nearing the place where separation breaks, and the field must clean out the distortions that kept you divided. Most people retreat at this stage. They try to soothe the discomfort, avoid the triggers or numb the intensity, but the more you resist the signal, the more it compresses. Discomfort only becomes suffering when you interpret it as an enemy rather than a message. Once you recognize it as a form of communication, the pressure becomes a guide. Every tightness, every wave of unease, every emotional spike is pointing to the exact spot where the observer has been hiding from the field. There is a profound honesty in this stage. No spiritual language is needed, no philosophies help. You are left with the raw feedback of your own body and the silent insistence of the field pressing you into coherence. And although it feels harsh, it is a form of precision. The field is removing what cannot enter the union with you: old stories, inherited fears, survival patterns that once protected you but now isolate you. When you can stay present with the discomfort without collapsing into it, something remarkable happens. The pressure softens. The noise begins to organize. What felt chaotic becomes directional. The field shifts from pushing you to guiding you, and you sense that the discomfort was never meant to break you. It was meant to bring you back into the place where the observer and the field can finally meet without interference. This is the hidden grace of intense discomfort. It is the final signal before alignment, the tightening of the currents before the union deepens. And once you recognize it, you stop fearing the pressure. You start listening to it. For all the talk about consciousness, intuition, and the field, the real gateway to union is far more physical than most people expect. It lives in the nervous system, your oldest instrument of perception, the bridge between your inner state and the world that reflects it. If the observer is awareness and the field is information, the nervous system is the channel that allows the two to recognize each other. When that channel is tense, overloaded, or defensive, union remains impossible no matter how sincere your intentions may be. Your nervous system has spent decades learning what is safe and what is dangerous, and it learned through experience, not philosophy. A harsh tone, an unpredictable childhood, a betrayal, a loss. These moments etched patterns into your body long before your mind could explain them, and the body remembers. When you try to observe reality with clarity, but your nervous system has been trained to scan for threat, your observation becomes distorted. The field doesn't feel like a partner. It feels like something that might hurt you. So the observer retreats, and separation becomes a survival strategy rather than a spiritual misunderstanding. Union begins the moment the body stops bracing. Not when the mind understands a concept, not when you repeat a mantra or visualize light, but when the nervous system lets go of its constant grip. This release is subtle. The breath lengthens without effort. The muscles around the ribs soften. The jaw unclenches. Your awareness widens not because you're trying, but because your body no longer expects the world to attack. And when the body relaxes, your observation becomes coherent. The field senses this coherence immediately. People often misunderstand nervous system regulation as emotional calmness. It's not. It's physiological permission. A regulated system allows you to perceive without filtering everything through fear. It gives you the capacity to feel reality directly, instead of interpreting it through old wounds. This is why moments of presence feel so alive. Your system momentarily stops defending itself, and in that pause, the field becomes accessible again. Think of the nervous system as the tuning mechanism of a radio. When it's overwhelmed, the signal between you and the field becomes static. When it calms, the frequency locks in, and communication becomes unmistakable. Intuition sharpens, timing becomes precise, synchronicities increase, not because you've suddenly become more spiritual, but because your system is finally able to receive what the field has been broadcasting all along. This is also why deep insights often arrive after silence, rest, or grief. When the body processes what it has held, its defensive patterns loosen, and the observer returns to its natural position, connected, receptive, unguarded. The field meets you in that openness with astonishing clarity. The union doesn't require mystical effort, it requires a body that no longer flinches at its own awareness. The final key of awakening is not cosmic, it is biological. When your nervous system feels safe, the boundary between observer and field dissolves effortlessly. You begin to sense that reality is not outside you, but moving with you, pulse for pulse, breath for breath. And once your body learns this safety, union stops being an experience you chase and becomes the state you inhabit. There are brief, almost invisible openings in your life when the union between observer and field slips through without your permission. You have felt them, even if you never named them. They arrive in the middle of ordinary moments, wrapped in a kind of quiet certainty that doesn't ask your opinion. Something in you softens, something around you responds, and for a few seconds, the distance between you and life disappears. Think about the times when decisions made themselves. You weren't analyzing or predicting. The next step simply revealed itself, as if it had been waiting for you to stop thinking long enough to hear it. That clarity isn't luck or intuition. It's the field adjusting to your moment of internal coherence. The observer stops spinning its narratives, the nervous system stops bracing, and the field slips into the space you just opened. Or consider those rare minutes when you lose track of time. Because your attention becomes so complete, the world seems to move through you instead of around you. Athletes call it flow, artists call it presence, and spiritual traditions call it union. But whatever the label, the mechanics are the same. Your awareness stops fighting itself and the field starts guiding the moment. You're not the one controlling the experience. You're being carried by something that recognizes your intention before you articulate it. Synchronicities are perhaps the most obvious manifestation, yet even they often go unnoticed. You think of someone, and they call. You consider a change, and the opportunity arrives within hours. You let go of a frustration, and everything suddenly rearranges itself with improbable timing. These events are not cosmic coincidences. They are the field responding to a shift inside you that lasted only a breath. For that brief instant, union was present, even if you were too distracted to realize it. What makes these moments so important is not their rarity, but their familiarity. They prove that union is not something you must achieve. It is something already happening in the background, waiting for your inner noise to quiet just enough to let it surface. The observer and the field have always been intertwined. You simply slip into that truth when the mind loosens its grip and the body stops shouting its old fears. The tragedy is that most people dismiss these openings as accidents, coincidences, or emotional highs. They don't realize these moments are the blueprint. They show what becomes possible when the barrier between inner state and outer movement dissolves, even briefly. And once you start noticing them, they multiply. The field feels recognized, and like anything intelligent, it responds by revealing more of itself. If you've ever felt that strange sense of alignment, a conversation arriving at the perfect second, a choice becoming obvious without effort, a path opening exactly when you exhaled, acknowledge it now. And if you're willing to own those moments instead of writing them off as chance, tap the like button and write in the comments, "I have seen the union." This simple act tells me you're not just hearing the words, you're recognizing your own experience inside them. As you move closer to the union between observer and field, your life begins to change in ways that are subtle at first, then unmistakable. These shifts don't arrive as grand revelations. They unfold quietly, as if reality were making small adjustments to accommodate a deeper coherence inside you. The first signs appear in your inner world. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. The mind becomes less reactive, not because you gained control, but because the internal pressure that once fueled constant mental activity starts dissolving. You notice yourself pausing before responding, sensing rather than analyzing, allowing things to settle before you interpret them. This stillness is not discipline, it's resonance. The observer is syncing with the field. The body confirms this shift. There is a strange sensation of expansion, subtle yet undeniable, as if the boundaries of your physical form were softening. Breath moves more freely. The chest opens as if a weight has been lifted. You walk through spaces with a quiet familiarity, as though the environment recognizes your state and adjusts its tempo to match it. The world stops feeling like something you must brace for and starts feeling like something you can lean into. Then the external signs begin. Synchronicities increase, not in dramatic flashes, but as a steady rhythm. People enter and exit your life with uncanny timing. Events rearrange themselves in ways that mirror your internal transitions. A conversation arrives just when you need it. An obstacle dissolves the moment you stop pushing against it. Situations that once drained you simply fade from your field without conflict. It's as if reality is reorganizing itself to match a new level of internal clarity. And in a way, it is. Another sign is the growing sense that your intuitive decisions are becoming more accurate. You choose faster, not recklessly, but with a grounded confidence that rises from somewhere deeper than thought. You begin trusting this inner movement because you've seen the field respond to it over and over. The feedback loop becomes evident. Your internal coherence shapes your external path, and the external path strengthens your internal coherence. Relationships shift as well. Conversations grow calmer. Connections feel cleaner, less entangled. You stop tolerating dynamics that require you to shrink. You also stop blaming others for emotional triggers that reveal your own outdated patterns. This doesn't mean you become detached or aloof. It means your sense of self no longer depends on controlling or being controlled. You move through relationships with more transparency, and people feel it. Some are drawn closer, others drift away. Both movements are part of the same alignment process, but perhaps the most powerful sign is this: you start sensing the field watching you back, not in a mystical or supernatural way, but in a deeply perceptive one. You notice that the world seems to respond to the quality of your presence rather than your actions. Life feels less like a sequence of tasks and more like a dialogue, one where your internal state speaks first and the field answers with astonishing precision. These signs don't mark a destination. They mark a transition. They indicate that the separation between your awareness and the world around you is thinning, that the union is no longer a concept, but an active, unfolding reality. The more you recognize these signals, the more the union solidifies. Until one day you realize you're no longer entering this stage. You're living inside it. Living as the union is not a mystical achievement. It is a shift in how you exist in every moment, a different posture of being that no longer relies on effort to create alignment. Once the observer and the field recognize each other as the same intelligence operating at two scales, your life stops being a negotiation with reality. It becomes a conversation conducted through presence rather than force. The first change you notice is the absence of the old compulsion to control. You no longer feel the need to push outcomes into place or bend circumstances to match your expectations, not because you've become passive, but because you finally understand that the field moves in direct response to the quality of your attention. When you observe with clarity, the world organizes itself with surprising fluidity. When you observe with fear, the field mirrors that too. Living as the union means choosing the kind of presence that shapes reality without interfering with it. There is a simplicity to this state. Decisions arise cleanly. Actions carry no residue of doubt. You no longer chase signs because you recognize that the field is already speaking through the timing of events, the tone of interactions, the subtle shifts that unfold around you. Guidance becomes less like a message you receive and more like a movement you feel from within. You walk into situations with an intuitive understanding of what is needed, not because you predicted the outcome, but because your inner state is synchronized with the environment. Relationships change in profound ways. You stop reacting to people's emotional currents because you no longer confuse their patterns with your own. The union dissolves the need for validation or defense. You listen more fully, speak with more precision, and bring a presence that regulates rather than escalates. Others feel the steadiness in you even if they cannot explain it. In this state, compassion becomes natural, not deliberate. You understand that every person is navigating their own distance from the field, and you no longer take their disconnection personally. Living as the union also changes how you experience time. You no longer rush toward the future or cling to the past. You inhabit the present not as a spiritual practice but as the most efficient way to move through life. The field responds most accurately when you are here, not elsewhere. This presence sharpens your perception. You notice patterns earlier. You sense misalignment before it becomes a problem. You recognize openings the moment they appear. Life feels less like a series of decisions and more like a current you can read with increasing clarity. Perhaps the most defining aspect of this state is the absence of inner conflict. Your intentions align with your actions. Your emotions align with your awareness. Your awareness aligns with the field. The pieces that once pulled in different directions now move as a single organism. You experience yourself as both the one who observes and the movement being observed. The divide that shaped your entire identity dissolves, leaving a quiet coherence in its place. Living as the union is not an escape from life. It is full participation. It is walking through the world without the old tension of separation, without the noise of self-defense, without the fear that reality might turn against you. Instead, you feel life adjusting to you as you adjust to it. A reciprocal dance that becomes the final key of awakening. The final key is realizing you were never separate from the field. The observer was simply the field seeing through your eyes. You aren't reaching for the universe. You are the universe remembering itself in human form. Union isn't a destination or a breakthrough. It is your original nature, quietly waiting for you to notice what has always been true. If something in you recognized this union, let it be known. Write in the comments, "I am the field in motion," so I can see who walked this entire path with me. And if this depth speaks to you, stay close, subscribe, and keep this space within reach. There is more unfolding.